What's up, jerks?
Manning retired.
Sure.
Both.
I like kickers.
Put him on the board. Hausch Mazzoli. Got it. Championship.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Fantasy Nerds. We're back to some sort of kind of normalcy here. As always, I am Jason Jarvi, and with me is my brother, Joel Jarvi. How's it going?
It's going good, Jason. How are you, buddy?
In life, I'm good. In fantasy football, not so much. But we also got the doc, John Macaroon. He's running the board, and he's looking at his phones. We're watching some Thursday Night Football. How are you doing, John?
It's all good. Looking forward to the podcast. I still love fantasy football. In my two leagues, quick update, 4-0. Thank you, Kenny. 2-2. Thank you, Jarvi.
And you stuck me with Andrew Luck on that draft, so I blame you for that. But we're going to start this off. This is a fantasy football podcast, and we're here to give you the tips and everything going into the weeks. But I want to talk about why fantasy football sucks, because it's something that I love, but inevitably sometime during the season I hate my life and I hate fantasy football, and I never want to do it again. You've talked me out the ledge numerous amounts of times, Joel, right?
I have, yeah. It's I think once a season, usually we have a heart to heart. We sit down, maybe we hug and just kind of sob in each other's arms because it's going rough and it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Remember, we're only 4 games in, and it usually,
I feel like you haven't been as worried as much lately. I distinctly remember a couple years ago where you were legitimately done. Like and I really felt like you were just upset with it and you wanted it to be done. But I think then you won a championship.
Yeah, winning a championship usually helps. But I think there usually comes a time every season where you just sit down and you're like, what am I doing this for? Why am I investing so much of my time and energy and heart and soul into this and not seeing results?
Well, I would like to say that after 16 years of never winning a championship, it magnifies it by that much more. And I know last year I was just like, I can't do it anymore. It's horrible. I hate it. I hate fantasy football. I hate my team. It always ruins me, and it ruins my day when I watch. And it doesn't help that the Lions repeatedly kick us in the junk.
We could spend an entire hour just talking about that.
I mean, I'm not, and we'll touch on it briefly. The Lions Monday Night Football game. Were you really surprised?
So I can't say I was surprised. I was absolutely devastated though every time. And I don't know why, because every time I tell myself I'm not going to let this happen to me again. And every time it's just devastating. It's just a punch in the gut every single time. And especially these last two, the Dallas playoff game and this Monday Night Football game, and just the utter screw job that has happened to Detroit Lions fans. It's so hard to handle. It's so hard to take.
I can't say that I was really surprised. I mean, going down that drive in the fourth quarter, I was already thinking in my head, how's it going to end? Is Stafford going to throw a pick? What's going to happen? And I was surprised when Calvin caught on that 3rd and 2. I totally thought they were giving it to Zenner and he was going to take it in, get a first down. But Megatron's going in. The ball gets knocked out. I saw that you see the guy tap it out, but I didn't know the rule.
No, nobody knew the rule, Jason.
I was like, well, that's it. That's another way that we lose. And I'm gonna predict on this show right now, the next surprising way that we lose a game is gonna be on one of those defensive extra points where we're gonna tie the game and we're gonna go for the extra point. They're gonna block it and run it back, and that's gonna be how we end the game. I'm calling my shot right now.
That'd be very fitting,
because I feel like we've lost every other way.
Every single other way. There's no more ways to lose, and if there are, the Lions will invent it.
Hey, that's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable, and I know the doc, we talked about it in the Motor City Sports Rant, how he wanted Jim Caldwell to rant and rave and be a whiny baby. But, I think people have said it, that that's not what Jim Caldwell is, and if he came out and did that, it would be fake.
We had that coach already. That was Jim Schwartz. We had that, and everybody hated him for it.
Yeah, I mean, we liked it for a minute, but then he sucked. I still think Jim Caldwell has an idea, and maybe he was lionized. I don't know, but I'd like to think that he can at least everything he's saying is that we're moving on.
I think that's the right thing to do. It hurts as a fan, and as much as I would love to see Martha Ford with a blowtorch in New York City at Roger Goodell's door, it's just not going to happen, and it's not realistic. It just isn't. They're the Lions, and they're always going to own the Lions, and so you just have to consciously know that as a Lions fan, this is stuff you're going to have to put up with probably forever.
Yeah, and if you have the luck that I do on fantasy football, it's something that you're going to have to live with forever when you play fantasy football. I apologize to everybody who took Andrew Luck because I cursed him. My curse is looking more and more real. I took Andrew Luck, and it's not every league. I feel like it's the one league that we've been doing for forever. I took Andrew Luck in the first round because it's a 2-quarterback league, and quarterbacks are gonna win you the league. And I figured Aaron Rodgers, Andrew Luck, there's no difference between those guys. You're going to get maybe 20, 30 points difference at the end of the season.
I believe the words we used were the closest thing to a sure thing.
And it's been anything but. Andrew Luck has screwed me.
What did you do to Andrew Luck, Jason?
I don't know. I have no idea. Oh. I mean, maybe next year, if I took Aaron Rodgers at first, I'd be surprised to see if it would have happened.
For Lions fans everywhere, I beg you to take Aaron Rodgers next year.
I'll take AP or Aaron Rodgers.
Please, think about the Lions fans, Jason.
Now, for both of you, I'm curious, has there been a guy that you've had that you were excited about, maybe like an AP last year, or someone that you thought was going to be your MVP and just turned out to be a massive dud? Who was your biggest dud?
Every single one of my first-round picks.
I wish I could say he's being like, he's speaking in hyperbole or something, but he's not.
Sean Alexander, the year after he had his gigantic year and he did nothing. Marshall Faulk, Curtis Martin, Edgerrin James. The list goes on and on. Drew Brees. I drafted Drew Brees in the first round one year, and it was the year that we did that. We decided the draft order by selecting rookies, and then we got to keep that rookie.
Yeah.
So I picked RG3. So I had Drew Brees and RG3. And RG3, if you remember the season, RG3 was having a better season.
Yeah, great.
So I decided to trade away Drew Brees to kind of get some more value. The guys I got, they broke down. RG3, he broke down. And there goes my season. So the curse is real.
It's so real.
But let's look at just this last week. Let's look at some moves that we made in our leagues. Let's look at since we're talking about awful moves, what was your worst move last week?
Oh, that's simple. So after 3 weeks of complete garbage and riding this guy every week, Jeremy Maclin, I finally last week said, I had it with him. I'm done with you, Maclin. You're riding the pine for me, buddy. And what does he do? He goes out and he catches over 100 yards and he goes bananas for the Chiefs. It was infuriating watching, and it hurt badly watching that on my bench. Needed it last week.
Yeah, that's tough. You know, anybody who had Devonta Freeman, maybe if they benched him after that 1 week, you're probably smarting as well. My worst move last week was hoping to get anything out of Amir Abdullah. You know, I figured Joique Bell's out. They're sticking with the run regardless of what they're doing, and he just did nothing. He got me maybe 6 points, and I think Tommy Rawls probably, he didn't have that great of a night, but it's just sad when I think the Lions defense actually did better than Amir Abdullah.
Is there any fantasy Lions player right now that you would start?
The Lions defense, maybe, depending on who they're playing. I think the defense seems like it's turning around. They really looked like they had the Seahawks number. It might just be the scheme that they were playing against them.
I think the Seahawks line isn't that great either.
It definitely hurt that they traded away their Pro Bowl center to the Saints. It's hard to bench Calvin Johnson.
I know it's hard to bench him, but at this point, do you have any faith in their offense whatsoever? Their running game is archaic. It's abysmal. It's horrible A-words. It's awful. It's so bad.
The one guy who I think he's more of a deep sleeper, and you're only starting him if you have to, which in one league I have to start him, is Theo Riddick. It's only in PPR leagues. If you do get a full point per reception, Theo Riddick actually has a little bit of value because he can get at least 5 to 7 receptions a game.
Yeah.
And that's probably going to give you more than the 13 and 50 yards from Amir Abdullah.
For sure. I mean, the two things about that, so, is that whenever you see Theo Riddick on the field, the problem with the Theo Riddick package, and I'm making air quotes with my fingers, is that when it's in, the ball's going to Theo Riddick. Everybody knows the ball's going to Theo Riddick. So that's my one thing. My other problem is, I think the stat I heard was, what was it? Carlos Hyde had like 168 yards week 1, and that the Lions in week 5 still aren't even close to 168 yards rushing as a team.
It's not good.
Oh, dude, it's beyond not good. It's pathetic.
Yeah, there's nothing we can do about it. I can't call up Joe Lombardi right now and say, figure it out.
Well, I mean, you, not to like drop names or anything, but you were kind of in Allen Park today. You could have cornered Joe Lombardi.
I could have, and then I would have lost my job. And I would
do it for the Lions fans, Jason. Is your job more important than all these Lions fans?
Yes.
It probably is. You're right.
So let's move on a little happier. What was your best move of last week?
So my best move of last week was finally seeing Sam Bradford put up what I've needed him to put up all season. So again, we've talked about it. Our league this year, our main league, because everybody has a main league. Our main league is a 2 quarterback starting system this year. And it's been, in my opinion, it's been brutal. And you need your quarterbacks performing. And Bradford has been just an anchor on the team all week. I wish I could say that I made the call. Like I had to make a choice. I could either do this guy or this guy, but let's be honest, bye weeks, I would have started Mariota probably last week, and he was on bye. So I had to start Bradford. So it's a win by default, really, but it's a win. I'll take it.
Yeah, and my win, I could say, picking up Matt Hasselbeck late and starting him over Jameis Winston was my win. It's not that much of a win. He only did, even with Winston's 4 interceptions, Hasselbeck only gave me maybe 2 or 3 more points. But my win in one of my leagues, I picked up Gary Barnidge, which, he's a Cleveland Brown, so he should scare you to pick him up even after he's had a good week. And he ended up, he had 67 yards and a touchdown, I think. And he was a serviceable tight end for my bye week. So I guess I'd point to that as my win. I could say starting Devonta Freeman, but that's kind of a no-brainer.
At this point. Now, so you did pick up Hasselbeck this last week in the main league.
I did.
And what did you spend on Matt Hasselbeck?
I spent $16.
I saw that, and I want to tell you the first thing I thought about when I saw that was at least you didn't spend $50 on Matt Hasselbeck.
Yeah, I was trying to... I needed to get him. And that was it, because literally there's no quarterbacks.
There's none.
On our waiver wire. With it being, it's a 10-team league. You start 2 quarterbacks. So pretty much everybody needs to have 3 quarterbacks rostered. Right now, on our waiver wire, top on the list is Johnny Manziel.
Ugh.
And then it goes to Matt McGloin. And the list goes on. Needless to say, we have 8 quarterbacks who have any points. And the rest are just, they're all starters.
Yeah.
I mean, Joe Webb has 0.4. BJ Daniels has 1 point. So I had to get Matt Hasselbeck.
Sure.
I didn't want to overpay because it's Matt Hasselbeck. If I would have lost out, I would have started Jameis Winston. Whatever. But I got him. And that's actually leading into our next topic of what is your biggest question this week on your roster? And my biggest question, which I already kind of made the decision, and it's for better or for worse. So
Mine too.
I picked up Matt Hasselbeck, and then earlier I had picked up Dante Moncrief. I've been rolling with him lately because he's been the only good receiver on Indianapolis.
He's been
so I have
good.
Those 2, and then I have Jameis Winston and Mike Evans on my team, both who have done very, very little. And
it's such a sexy pickup, though.
Leading up to Thursday, which is today, which is yesterday when this comes out, I was trying to figure out Matt Hasselbeck. Andrew Luck was ruled out, but Matt Hasselbeck hadn't practiced. He hadn't thrown at all. Apparently, he went to the emergency room for some virus he had. I didn't know what we were going to get out of him. He's going up against J.J. Watt and the Texans. I think he might be on his back, and Josh Johnson might be in the game. So I made the decision to put Winston in there over Matt Hasselbeck. And because I wanted to get the double dip, and I think that Moncrief, it might affect him, I put in Evans over Moncrief. I mean, what do you think about that?
I think that's a real boomer bust move, but I think it's one you had to make. I'm looking on online right now, and it's saying that Hasselbeck's got a bacterial infection, and his energy levels are extremely low. He's not even sure if he can play 4 quarters.
He has low energy, would you say?
Yeah. So that to me, I think that's a good call. It's a safe call, I think. And it's a call that most importantly, at the end of the day, I could sleep at night pulling the trigger on that move.
And yeah, I'm not going to worry too much because I don't think Hasselbeck was going to do that well. Moncrief, he might have gotten, a touchdown, but I feel like Evans, he's finally back full healthy. He's getting more targets.
Yep.
And I just think there's more possibility. And they're going up against Jacksonville this week.
Yeah, and the Falcons tore up the Texans last week. That was one of the things I had to do this week. Was I've been playing the Texans defense all season long, and last week I had to take them out back and put them out of their misery. That was it. I'm done with the Texans. J.J. Watt, he's fantastic, fabulous. I love the guy. I love his work ethic. Their defense is hot garbage.
And it's the year that we went away from IDPs.
Of course it is. Of course it is, Jason.
So is that your decision this week, or do you have a different one?
So my decision was we were texting furiously before I came out to the fabulous studios for this show, trying to decide about Frank Gore. Man, Frank Gore is just such a pain in my butt, and I don't know why I drafted him again. But he's on my team. He's a constant question mark. He's too good for me to bench most of the time, and he's hurt. And so I was trying to decide if I'm going to leave Gore in my lineup, if I was going to move him to flex, if I should be starting a bigger question mark, but possibly a bigger boom in Matt Jones or, Isaiah Crowell. And I'm not going to start Isaiah Crowell over Frank Gore at this point. So I finally made the call to leave Frank Gore in. So it's 8:27 on Thursday. Kickoff should be any minute now. And let's hope that bacterial infection has to lean on their run game a lot today.
So what did you do with your flex then? I know that was a big question too.
My flex, I left Woodhead in. I agree with you. Woodhead's a huge PPR play. I think Phillip Rivers is comfortable with Danny Woodhead. He's a sneaky guy that gets more goal line carries than you'd think he should. So I was comfortable rolling with Woodhead.
And you did him over Vincent Jackson, right?
Yep. I left Vincent Jackson on my bench.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you really could have gone either way. Vincent Jackson, up until last week, he really hadn't done a whole lot.
No.
And I feel like this week, Tampa Bay is going to probably spread the ball around a little bit more. They may even look to get the run game going.
Yeah.
Going up against Jacksonville, they can throw out both Doug Martin and Charles Sims. Try to get what you can from those guys. And Danny Woodhead, Monday night at home against Pittsburgh, I think he could have a pretty solid game. Yeah. Because Pittsburgh's defense isn't that good.
No, you're absolutely right. I can also say probably with a good degree of certainty that since I did leave Vincent Jackson on my bench, much like Macklin last week, you can probably expect a big game out of Vincent Jackson. But I can live with that.
Well, for my sake, because I have Jameis Winston, I hope that's the case.
I hope he throws 3 touchdowns to him, Jason.
Well, I hope he throws 3 touchdowns to Mike Evans because I'm also starting that guy.
That's true.
Shut your hole.
Okay.
So let's move on to some injuries and some player news just to kind of go down the list. Andre Ellington, they're saying that he's probable coming back from the PCL strain. He practiced in full. I'm just not sure what he's going to be like when this week, because Chris Johnson has been serviceable. I think Ellington may actually get the fewer of the carries.
Has it ever in the history of the NFL, in the history of fantasy football, been harder to pinpoint what back is going to actually do something? I mean, you say the Cardinals, and every back you just named, Ellington, Chris Johnson, David Johnson, they've all had semi-big games. Mm-hmm. We're only in week 4. Who do you start? It's so tough with the way things are in the NFL now.
Yeah, and I really don't think you can start any of those guys as a running back 2. Chris Johnson, you might put him in as a running back 2. I think Ellington is maybe as a flex, and David Johnson only if you have to start him.
Yeah.
Tevin Coleman, the running back on the Atlanta, the rookie who got hurt in week 1, he was looking pretty solid until he got hurt. But now Freeman, back-to-back 3 touchdown games. He's been limited in practice, and Kyle Shanahan, the offensive coordinator there, is hoping that he can play. But I mean, do you really want to play him? You got Devonta Freeman. It's got to worry Freeman owners too, because if the offensive coordinator is hoping that he comes back, what does that mean what kind of timeshare are we going to look at?
Yeah, I don't know. It's tough. I mean, common sense dictates that you ride the hot hand, right?
Yeah, common sense, but most NFL coaches don't have a lot of common sense.
Yeah, and they care nothing for you. In fact, as I've said before, they hate you and I. They hate fantasy players.
They want to be the smartest men in the room.
Always.
So be wary with Tevin Coleman. Steve Smith with his back injury. I know he hasn't practiced this week, and he's likely going to be riding the pine. So if you got him,
Steve Smith is one of those guys that every damn season that I don't draft him, he's just one of those guys that puts up points, and I look at him all season long like, why didn't I get this guy? He's so good. And this year, I got him, and he's garbage.
Yep. LaShawn McCoy and Carlos Williams, the two starting running backs for the Bills, both likely going to be out. LaShawn McCoy with his hamstring, he's already listed as doubtful, which in the long run is probably good for him and the team. And for fantasy owners, you at least get that kind of the finality that he's not going to be playing.
Yeah.
And maybe if you are still in contention, he'll be healthier when he comes back. Carlos Williams is a guy, though, that has been on he's pretty much off the radar because everybody has him now.
Right. He's been saving fantasy seasons all over the world.
And he might play, but you got to watch that matchup because he hasn't practiced yet. He's still going through the whole concussion protocol. But if both of those guys are likely out, you're going to want to look at Booby Dixon.
Booby Dixon?
Anthony Dixon, if you can't find Booby.
Booby?
Yes.
I would love to start a guy named Booby.
Another Bill, Sammy Watkins, didn't practice with his calf injury. He's more than likely going to be out. I'm curious how much that really affects Tyrod Taylor because he's been one of the interesting stories this year. He really went from no name being a third string quarterback to he's putting up some solid games. And Percy Harvin's banged up a little bit. Sammy Watkins more than likely going to be out. It's last week he kind of got saved with a Carlos Williams receiving touchdown.
It was a beautiful catch.
So that would be I'm not worried about Sammy Watkins. I'd be more worried about Tyrod Taylor's value.
Yeah, I think if you're starting Tyrod Taylor in fantasy, you're probably in a situation where you need to be starting him. I wouldn't bench him at this point for anything. I think by the end of the season, Tyrod could very well be a top 10 quarterback, if not maybe top 6 or 7.
Yeah, I would definitely say top 10. We'll have to wait and see on any higher than that. Both of the Bears wide receivers, Alshon Jeffrey, he is limited at practice. Eddie Royal, though, has not practiced yet. We may actually see the first sighting of Alshon Jeffrey this week. So it would definitely help Jay Cutler.
For sure.
Because Jay Cutler seemed to, quote unquote, find the fountain of youth last week against the Raiders. Well, he went from being bad Jay Cutler to being serviceable Jay Cutler.
See, I mean, let's be honest about Jay Cutler. He's got all the tools to do the job. He's got
sounds like another quarterback that I know.
Yeah, a lot. And that's why it's hard for me to compare the two because of course I always want to be, Stafford's much better. But Jay Cutler has the tools. He's got he's got a much better running back than Stafford. He's got, equal, in my opinion, wide receivers and better tight end. And he just never puts it together. So Jay Cutler is the ultimate coin flip in fantasy. And I hate coin flips in fantasy. I would probably stay away from Bears for the rest of the season, but I mean, that's probably oversimplifying the entire situation. So
yeah, Jay Cutler might be an interesting pickup. Like if you have absolutely no backup quarterback, or if you have an established quarterback and you want to get a backup, Jay Cutler might be that guy.
Yeah.
Jeremy Hill with his ankle, he was limited at practice. Likely going to play, but I would keep an eye on him because Giovanni Bernard has been stealing more and more carries from him.
More importantly, Jeremy Hill was a high draft pick of yours in the main league, so that should be a red flag for everybody going forward on Jeremy Hill.
Yes, I know. Thanks for reminding me.
But hey, what did I say before we came in to record?
I hate fantasy football.
You did. You said that. But about Jeremy Hill specifically, he started slow last season, and then he was a stud for me for the last half of the season, possibly a fantasy MVP. So it's hard to give up on him. I would roll with him, man.
Well,
he's better than Giovanni Bernard. He is.
Yeah. Duke Johnson, we're going to talk about a Brown. He had a pretty solid game last week. It was more in the passing game. But with his ankle injury, he was a full go at practice and likely to go again. I think he's going to start, you're going to start seeing him steal carries from Isaiah Crowell. I think they drafted him high, and he's starting to show what he can do.
Yeah, that staff has something with Crowell, though. They love that guy. I mean, he survived. He was the one that survived between him and Terrence West. So I feel like they got something invested in Crowell for some reason. They won't go away from him. Much like a team we know in town that seems to have something invested in Joique Bell and won't go away from him. That's how I feel about the Browns treating Isaiah Crowell.
I think Isaiah Crowell might be better than Joique Bell, though.
I agree.
Devontae Adams, his ankle injury, he might actually sit out until after their bye in week 7.
Wow.
Which, you got to be worried because you drafted this guy probably as a number 2 receiver after. Hopefully you had your draft after the whole Jordy Nelson injury, and then you're drafting Devontae Adams after this. You're drafting him higher. I guess you would be lucky if you were drafting before Jordy Nelson got hurt, because Devontae Adams was then likely a lower draft pick. But, they're not really suffering without Devontae Adams in Green Bay.
No, they don't ever suffer ever in Green Bay. I don't even talk about suffering in Green Bay in the same sentence. Aaron Rodgers is a wizard, and he will make any wide receiver around him the stud of the game. And so he's going to lean on James Jones and Randall Cobb for the rest of the season.
And Richard Rodgers. Who I just picked up, but, I just picked him up, so you never know what's going to happen.
Let me ask you something about picking up guys. And this is I feel like, is there any better feeling in the world than when you get the guy that you wanted on waiver wires? Like if you're in like a blind auction bid and you get the guy, you bid the right amount, you outbid, and you see below you see guys that went for that guy and they didn't get him. Like, is there a better feeling than that? But the second part of that question is, do you have the guts to start the guys that you pick up on the waiver wire?
That's what I'm doing this week. I only got him for $1. Theo Riddick, starting him this week.
Wow.
Because I have horrible. The week before I went out and I picked up Lance Dunbar. I thought that was a great pickup, and then he proceeds to go out for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So Theo Riddick, here's fingers crossed that you don't break your leg.
Yes.
And another injury, which it's going to be interesting. Dez Bryant. They're saying he could be back week 7. Mm-hmm. I really think that's the earliest that he's going to be back, and it'll be after their bye. I mean, it's got to be at least a little bit encouraging for Dez Bryant owners.
Yeah, if you can hold on to Dez Bryant, if you drafted Dez Bryant and you've held on to him through all this, and you're still in a position of possibly being in a playoff contention, then good for you. I don't know how you can, knowing where you would have to have drafted Dez Bryant and then just hold on to him, man, you would have had to have a really good draft.
Yeah, you kind of feel you have a little something in your heart for the guys that you hold on to. I know I drafted in one league. I drafted both Antonio Gates and Martavis Bryant, knowing both of them. I wouldn't have either of them until week 5, which is this week. And I think 2 weeks ago, I got a trade request. Anquan Bolden and Tyler Eifert for Bryant and Gates. I'm like, no. I've held on to these guys for as long as I have, and I'd rather roll with them when they come back than start these garbage guys.
That's true. Well, I mean, garbage guys. I have to admit that Tyler Eifert has been one of those guys that I've kind of longingly been looking at, like, oh, that guy would be nice to have on the team.
It's a tight end, though.
It is a tight end. You're absolutely right.
It's like Dennis Farrell talking about Leonard Hankerson.
Which, if we go back to my waiver wire question a little bit ago, I was super pumped that I got Leonard Hankerson this week, but I do not have the guts to start him this week.
Which, I mean, you really should. Which I still hate Leonard Hankerson, but I will say that he has looked better.
You hate Leonard Hankerson?
I do. Because it's Leonard Hankerson. This is the same reaction that I have with Dennis. It's Leonard Hankerson.
He's got such a cool name, though. Like, that's a throwback football name, Leonard Hankerson. That's like a Lombardi or like a, I don't know where I'm going with this.
He's garbage, but he's worth starting in some leagues.
Garbage. Poor Leonard. We're sorry, Leonard, if you're listening to the podcast.
I'm not sorry at all. Let's talk about if you are looking to pick up some people, who might be out there on the waiver wire. I know if you're in a 14-team league.
Leonard Hankerson.
Yeah, that is one guy, Leonard Hankerson. He's owned in 13.6% of ESPN leagues.
That is far too few.
I mean, with the majority of the leagues being 10-team, though, I think it's not that crazy. But if you are looking for something, Leonard Hankerson, he'd be an interesting bye-week pickup, or at least just to roster him. I think if you're looking for some running backs, I talked about Duke Johnson. With the injury to Lance Dunbar, Darren McFadden is the guy that is probably going to benefit. It's going to be between him and Christian Michael. I give the nod to Darren McFadden, though, because he's been there longer, even if it's only a month or two.
How much more excited would you be about Darren McFadden right now if Tony Romo was still the quarterback?
I'd be very excited because Brandon Weeden is garbage, just like Leonard Hankerson. But Darren McFadden, he's probably going to pick up a little bit more. And I'm not too concerned about the whole Randall benching last week after he fumbled. Joseph Randall he's the bell cow there. He's clearly the replacement for DeMarco Murray.
Yep.
Darren McFadden is going to he's going to be the Lance Dunbar now. I think you're going to see him more on third downs and in passing situations. So if he is out there, try to go pick him up.
Let me ask you, Jason, let's get your opinion here. All right. You're the expert.
Yeah.
Hey, you're a paid professional to talk about fantasy football.
Yeah.
So you're the only person in this room that's a paid professional. So you're the expert, dude.
Okay.
Antonio.
I am in air quotes, expert.
Oh, I'll take it. Antonio Andrews for the Tennessee Titans, undrafted, practice squad player, week 3, leads the Titans in carries, scores 12 points in our league, which is pretty good for a running back. Do you pick him up? But then he went right on by right after it. It's so hard when a guy does that.
Nope. I wouldn't go for him.
No, you stay away.
I still think it's Bishop Sankey, and I know they have a rookie there too, I think. But it's going to be Bishop Sankey. I don't. If you do go out and pick him up, I'm not starting him. It's like you said. It's the waiver wire pickup. But are you bold enough to start them?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you're right.
Yeah. Ronnie Hillman. He's not a unknown.
Ugh.
He's not unknown, but he's the only Bronco running back who's doing anything right now.
And that's not saying much for Denver.
And I don't think there's a whole lot more to say about Ronnie Hillman. I think you know what you got. C.J. Anderson's doing very little. Ronnie Hillman's doing very little, but Hillman is doing a little bit more.
Yeah.
One guy. This is a guy that I actually like, and I think it's inherent with wide receivers. There's just more opportunity for wide receivers to do good because you always see about Ronnie Hillman, Boobie Dixon. These are guys that they're going to come in, but they may not do anything. Alan Hearns, a wide receiver for Jacksonville Jaguars. I think he's really anybody on the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. Any of the receivers, whether it's Hearns or Allen Robinson.
The Allens.
They're pretty good. They could actually be good plays because Jacksonville is going to be down a lot in games. And Bortles has proved that he's not that bad of a play from behind quarterback. He's kind of like where Matt Stafford was in the early parts of his career, where he wasn't a very good NFL quarterback, which he still isn't a very good NFL quarterback. But at least back then, he was a very good fantasy quarterback.
Yeah, no, I'm leaning on Alan Henderson in the main league. I think you got a guy in Blake Bortles who is easily one of the funnest names to say. Who does? He gets to throw it around. Let's be real too. TJ Yeldon may not be super fantasy relevant right now, but he's a quality NFL running back. Makes them have to respect the run against Jacksonville. I definitely like both the Allens as far as wide receivers go, and the fact that they may be available on the waiver wire. Let me ask you about another guy, Jason. Willie Snead. I like to call him Fast Willie Snead from New Orleans. He's getting a lot of looks from Drew Brees, really stepping up, much more so than than Marcus Colston and some of the other guys there. What do you think?
With Willie Snead, it's still Brandon Cooks. He's been the big target in New Orleans, and I think anybody other than him, it's hard to really start those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Snead, it's essentially the same thing as Robert Meacham or Devery Henderson.
Mm-hmm. Drew Brees does that to wide receivers just by nature.
Right.
He's such a good fantasy quarterback, but he spreads it around so much, so it doesn't help you as far as the people that are around him. And
I don't think it also helps that Mark Ingram has really. I think they've gone to more of a run attack in New Orleans because Drew Brees he's getting older, and I actually wouldn't be surprised if Drew Brees isn't on the Saints next year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's probably time to at least seriously consider that. I remember. Do you remember in the offseason when there was that crazy rumor about New Orleans making a trade with Tampa Bay, trading Drew Brees to Tampa Bay for that first pick, and then New Orleans taking Jameis. How cool would that have been? That would have been an exciting trade, really, because you'd have Jameis in New Orleans with that group, and then you'd have Drew Brees with I would say probably a pretty decent surrounding cast in Vincent Jackson and Mike Evans. I mean, those are really good wide receivers for Brees, but it's all fantasy. So
Yeah, and it never happened. I would say it would be interesting. I'm not sure if it would have worked though, just because I think Drew Brees loves himself some Sean Payton. I think Sean Payton loves himself some Drew Brees. I'm not sure if either one of them will succeed without the other.
Yeah, and I would like to say too, for the record, on the very first podcast that I came on, I believe Mark Ingram was someone that I said I think was going to have a good fantasy season.
Oh, good for
Find the
you,
tape.
Jack.
Find the tape.
I probably won't.
Pull it up. No, pull it up now.
If you are looking for a quarterback out there, a lot of them, if you're scraping the barrel, who do you like between these two guys? And neither of these are very good options, but Josh McCown or Kirk Cousins. So
the Sparty in me says Kirk Cousins.
Obviously.
Yeah. But I also think, I mean, to be fair, I think I'd rather have Kirk Cousins playing. I think Pierre Garçon is a solid wide receiver.
Djax is still out.
Yeah, Djax is still out. But
we got Jordan Reed.
What about that Jamison Crowder kid?
Yeah, that's right. He came on. He's looked interesting. I think he's having a quiet year.
He reminds me of a 2014 Jarvis Landry. Like, sneaky good, like maybe not great right now, but by the end of the season, I bet you Jamison Crowder is going to be rostered on a lot of teams. And I'm obviously I have Matt Jones on my team, so I'm rooting for the guy. I think Matt Jones is a quality running back too. I think Washington will be better soon. Maybe not this year, but soon.
Yeah, they're gonna have to figure it out. Let's answer a couple questions that we've gotten from Twitter.
Super.
We have a couple questions because Andrew Luck is out, which again I apologize for. But the first one is Brandon Weeden or Kirk Cousins.
I'm gonna say Brandon Weeden.
Brandon Weeden is going up against the Patriots. Kirk Cousins is going up against the Falcons. Neither of them are very good matchups.
Yeah, the Falcons rung up 40 points last week on the Texans, and I don't know. I feel better about Brandon Weeden starting. I feel like he hasn't been completely awful in the starts that he's had. I mean, he's a dump off king. As long as he's got Jason Witten and Joseph Randle healthy, I think I'm still going to go Brandon Weeden over Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I'll go Brandon Weeden. Another one, which I think there's a clear favorite in here. Blake Bortles or Josh McCown.
Blake Bortles.
Yeah, it's Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
I think he's, if you want to talk about a guy who could be a top 10 or higher quarterback, he has the ability.
I agree with you.
I know that the doc was very excited about Blake Bortles.
You just like saying his name, don't you?
Man, I was so desperate. I couldn't believe it. But, when you think about it, Jacksonville's going to be out of so many games that he's going to pick up maybe 200 yards and a touchdown every game. He got 20 points. And when you're desperate when you're playing Andrew Luck and he's getting 15 and guys on your bench like Jameis Winston maybe are getting a little bit more, hey, Blake Bortles is not all that bad. Not that he's a great quarterback. It's just Jacksonville is a terrible team, and he's going to get like Matt, pad Stafford yards. And so far so good.
That's what we were saying. If you were listening to the podcast,
I'm rolling, man.
He's got in Blake Bortles the next 2 weeks got Tampa Bay, Houston, a bye week, Houston, Buffalo, a bye week, and the Jets. I mean, that's a pretty decent start. I would start Blake Bortles.
So another question that it's surprising that all these people without Andrew Luck were able to get Blake Bortles, but they actually have three options: Alex Smith, Blake Bortles, or Eli Manning.
Oof.
Which they're interesting options,
Yeah,
the Chiefs are at home against the Bears, Derek Carr didn't light up the Bears like I thought he was going to, but Alex Smith had a pretty solid week last week. Blake Bortles going up against Tampa Bay, and Eli Manning, who everybody hates Eli, but he's been dependable.
Yeah, I think as much as I hate to say it, I think I'd go Eli in that game. He's playing Sunday night at home against San Francisco. I think that's a pretty good matchup for Eli. And we're still waiting for a humongous game out of OBJ, right?
Yeah, he's a guy that, he's going to break out at some point. And with no Victor Cruz in the sight lines, they're going to have to rely on him.
Yeah.
I'd probably go Eli Manning here. Blake Bortles is still an interesting start there. I think he would be the more boom or bust. He'd be the bust guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eli Manning.
Yeah, I think I would go if in that choice. I would go Manning, Bortles, Smith.
We had a question about a trade. Amari Cooper for Megatron, straight up.
So I know Doc would just veto that right now. He would veto it no matter what, unless he proposed it. Right, Doc?
Exactly.
Right,
Veto
okay.
all trades, no matter what they are.
Yeah, you listened to that, Jason, didn't you? When he said his philosophy about vetoing trades is that he vetoes all trades.
Where's my you're a dick drop?
It's coming right up. Yeah, why not? I mean, you really and when you're playing for money and teams are trying to improve, hey, I just vetoed out of principle.
You're a dick. See, that ruins the whole. It ruins fantasy football. Fantasy at that point, it's not fantasy football; it's gambling.
That's the attitude I take. But then, okay, fine. But I'm not of the opinion that the commissioner should just overrule everything. There should be a vote in all leagues because there is gambling involved. There is, the potential for some shady business going on. So all trades should have a vote. I'm not into the whole. I don't like leagues where you can just make moves, whatever happens.
Yeah, but if
every league should vote.
If you're just vetoing it, then you're being the dick there.
Yeah, but in a democracy, I have the right to do whatever I want.
Well, you're the horrible part of democracy and why it shouldn't be around. Dictatorship.
You're a dick.
Thank you.
Hustle harder. That's my motto. Hustle harder.
I don't know. I mean,
okay. The trade was
you're trading Amari Cooper for Megatron. I think it's really a push to me because I think Megatron, he's still going to give you good weeks. I'm just not sure. I mean, we haven't seen it from this offense. Unless they're going to do what they did at the end in the last 2 minutes of the Monday Night Football game, Amari Cooper and Megatron might essentially be the same player.
This is so hard for me to say, but I think I'm done with Calvin Johnson. I really do. He's like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he's horrible, but for who he is and what the Lions need him to be and what you probably need him to be on your fantasy team, he's just not that anymore. So in that situation, I think the guy that's getting Amari Cooper, I think that's a smart move. I mean, trades are subjective, right? Are we talking about a dynasty league? Do they get to keep them? Amari Cooper is a young guy. If you're talking about a dynasty league and you're thinking about 4 or 5 years in the future, you absolutely want Amari Cooper more than Calvin Johnson.
Right, but we can't cover everything.
Sure.
But as a standard league, I might do it.
I would definitely think hard about it. And in the end, I think I would probably do that trade if I was the one getting Amari.
Another Amari Cooper question. Should I start Rashad Jennings over Amari Cooper in the flex week 5 due to Denver's matchup against due to their matchup against Denver?
I think that's a good. I think that's a good idea for sure. I think we just got done talking about how Eli Manning, San Francisco, Sunday Night Football at home. Rashad Jennings, he's really their number 2 wide receiver in New York. It's OBJ and then it's Rashad Jennings. I would very strongly consider that.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to disagree with you. I think Ruben Randall has really proven that he's kind of like the Leonard Hankerson this year. But
you hate Leonard Hankerson.
I do, but
you don't hate Ruben Randall.
I don't hate Ruben Randall because he's a better quarterback,
and his name is a sandwich. So I see why you like him.
I like a Ruben without the sauerkraut. Just give me corned beef.
Is that really a Ruben still though?
No, but I just want corned beef now. So thanks for reminding me that I haven't eaten. I think Amari Cooper, he's still going to get looks, and somebody's going to have to fight against this Denver's defense. Rashad Jennings, I think Andre Williams is really the goal line back, so I think that hurts Rashad Jennings. So unless you're in a PPR league and you think that Rashad Jennings is going to get 8 catches and then maybe he gets a touchdown on one of those, I think I'd go Amari Cooper. Trade question, which it sucks. I hate it because it involves CJ Anderson because I traded for CJ Anderson and it didn't work out for me. I still got Randall Cobb out of that deal. But anyways, this person's asking, should I trade CJ Anderson for Lamar Miller?
Yes, you should, because Lamar Miller is a starter and CJ Anderson is in the RBBCist of RBBCs. So yes, I would make that move. If I was getting Lamar Miller back in that trade, I would not think twice about trading away CJ Anderson.
Yeah, I mean, with Lamar Miller, he hasn't been great so far, but you got to at least hope that with the coaching change in Miami, that I think the guy before them they were pretty much done with him. And I think he's the best back there right now until they can see what Jay Ajayi is when he comes back from injury.
Mm-hmm.
Lamar Miller is going to be the starting guy, and Tannehill, he needs to get something right. And until that happens, I think they're going to rely on Lamar Miller.
Yeah, that team's going to want to perform now that their head coach is gone, and looks like they're parting ways with their defensive coordinator too as well. I think Lamar Miller, he's definitely poised. I think all the Dolphins are poised to make jumps.
I mean, I'd be interested. I'd be curious if you could actually make that trade, though. I'm really don't know what you're going to get for C.J. Anderson right now.
Right.
We got a couple more lineup questions. At tight end, Martellus Bennett or Antonio Gates?
Oof. Until I see Gates come back and play, I'm Martellus Bennett. If Gates comes back gangbusters his first week back, then I think that's kind of a no-brainer, and you're in a position of riches. But for this week, I'd probably say Martellus Bennett. I
mean, yeah, you're right. If you drafted both of these guys, then yeah, you're smart. You drafted a very good tight end, and then you drafted a guy who was going to come in, and then you'd have two top tight ends. I actually am going to go Antonio Gates this week. Going up against the Steelers on Monday night, that Steelers secondary is bad. No Troy Polamalu in the middle. I think it's going to be a very good game from Antonio Gates. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm here for. I'm here just to give you my opinion. I think they're both going to have good games.
Absolutely. I agree.
And another quarterback question, Jay Cutler or Derek Carr?
That other guy, whoever you said other than Cutler.
Derek Carr.
Yeah, anybody but Cutler.
Derek
ABC.
Carr. Going up against the Broncos.
I'll take Derek Carr.
Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware, Jay Cutler. Oh, yeah. Both are going up against solid defenses.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would go Derek Carr as well. I think that about wraps it up.
I'd say so, man. I think you're going to get who do you got this week?
This week I'll tell you in just a second. Do you know who you have?
Let's see. This week
I think I have Chris.
Oof.
Which it's a rough matchup for me.
Yeah.
Currently as we're going, crud.
Oh yeah. ESPN doesn't like you this week, Jason.
No, it didn't.
Does ESPN ever like you though?
It doesn't.
No.
I have Jameis Winston, Carson Palmer, Jeremy Hill, Theo Riddick, Calvin Johnson, Mike Evans, Richard Rodgers, Brandon Cook, Seahawks, and Matt Bryant. Going up against Blake Bortles, Eli Manning, Matt Forte, Carlos Hyde, Larry Fitzgerald, Demaryius Thomas, Antonio Gates, Jordan Matthews, Bills, and Chandler Catanzaro. I'm probably going to get housed.
You think so?
Yes.
I don't know, man. I think you got a sneaky week. I think maybe you could pull this one out this week.
Well, I will know by the end of the 4 o'clock games because all of them are either 1 o'clock or 4 o'clock games.
Do you like that or do you not like that?
I like having a guy on Monday night.
I do too. Have you ever started a guy? Have you ever had like a coin flip decision and gone with the guy that plays Monday night instead of the other guy?
Probably at some point.
Yeah.
I know last week I in one of my leagues I had Tyler Lockett starting and I had Rawls on the bench just in case Lynch didn't play. I put Rawls in. Neither of them did anything.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a push.
Playing that staunch Lions defense.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Being that your record isn't that great, what was the worst year that you ever had? Did you ever have a 2 or 3 win year where you just absolutely couldn't put anything together? Or have you been kind of where your bad years are kind of like 6 and 7, 7 and 6, those even years? I don't recall any for me, but man, could you imagine going 3 and 10 in a fantasy league? My goodness.
I want to say that I probably have finished that bad just because I've had horrible lineups. And I have horrible luck. I'm not gonna.
Are you starting to get the vibe that maybe this year could be your worst year ever?
What a horrible question.
Well, you start 0-4 and you're projected to lose, be 0-5. That's that's a good chunk of the season already.
I have faith that Jeremy Hill and Calvin Johnson, Mike Evans, and Andrew Luck even, that these guys, they can turn it around somewhat to get me to 6 and 7 at least. I gotta hope, but it's going to be a big turnaround because just to get to 6 and 7, I'm going to have to go 6 and 3.
Hey,
it's possible, dude. Like 6 and 7 got me into the playoffs last year, and that's all you need to do. You just need to make the playoffs. Honestly, I'm looking at your team, man, and Chris's team, and he's probably going to listen to this, and he'll probably be mad, but I think the positional. I think they're all pushes, really. I mean, is Forte and Carlos Hyde really head and shoulders better than Hill and Riddick?
I think so.
I don't know.
I'm starting Theo Riddick.
I get that, but I think Carlos Hyde hasn't shown anything except for game 1. He's
Right.
shown nothing.
I know the doc is unhappy with him as well.
Sure, for good reason. I think Jameis Winston, Carson Palmer, I think is a close push to Blake Bortles and Eli Manning. Like, Carson Palmer's been fantastic, and he gets Detroit. Our secondary is easily the weakest part of our defense. I don't know, man. I think you're closer to a push than you think.
Well, we will have to see. And, I know Doc, he's bringing out some very depressing thoughts in me of having the worst season of my life. But there's always next week. And we'll be back next week, hopefully. And but that'll do it for the Fantasy Nerds.
I'm wishing everybody out there that's listening to the podcast luck this week.
But not Andrew Luck.
I
am Jason Jarvi.
I'm Joel Jarvi. You hate Leonard Hankerson?
I do.
What did
Because it's Leonard Hankerson. This is the same reaction that I have with Dennis. It's Leonard Hankerson.
He's got such a cool name though. Like that's a throwback football name.